Hello and welcome. Well, we all know that feeling when your home is in need of a good clean out and it's just overcluttered. It can feel a little bit like life is just unorganized. And for me personally, and I'm sure you're the same, it can affect our moods, our thoughts, and even sometimes our ability to be social, having friends and family over to visit. As we know, life is just really busy and it can feel like there's never enough time for big household projects such as decluttering. But apparently, it doesn't have to be one huge task that drains you. Just as our special guest is going to give us some really helpful tips today, and I can't wait to hear about them. So, today we are speaking with Narelle King, who will share helpful tips for anyone looking for support in decluttering your home to make it just that little bit easier and just to stop that feeling of overwhelm. Now, Narelle will break it down into small tasks and help teach us how we can add small amounts of decluttering into our daily and weekly routines. So thank you so much for joining us, Narelle. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Thanks, Rach, for having me.
Now, for anyone watching and listening, I'm just going to give them a little bit of introduction into who you are. Now, Narelle is a Yin and Nidra Yoga instructor and wellness coach for Simply Happy. Now, she works with working mums who are always on the go and struggle with the constant juggle of work and family commitments that leave them feeling exhausted and just taking a toll on their health. Now, it's been a few months since our chat last year, and we had the ability to talk out lots of stuff right in the belly of the beast during COVID last year. But it's been a few months, and I'd just love to know from your perspective, looking back on the year that was last year. I mean, how are you sort of feeling about sort of 2020 and where things are and life is at now in 2021?
No, it's great. It's great to, I suppose, we're feeling we know what if we do go into a lockdown, what to expect now, which is great. That takes out of that uncertainty. But yeah, and it's great to have the kids back at school. So yeah, life's good, and work is extremely busy. So yeah, I'm actually working a lot of doing the coaching around organisation with families, and in particular families with NDIS plans. So generally autistic children, and just setting up some simple strategies to help the family with their organisation and decluttering as well, so that the children can achieve whatever the goals are that they've got set for themselves. Maybe it's around dressing, maybe it's around meal planning and foods, or just getting ready in the morning. So, yeah.
Now, we published an article titled How to Declutter Your Home with Kids and Reduce the Mental Load. Now, for someone who hasn't read your article yet, can you please tell us what it's about and what inspired you to write it?
Well, it's definitely the work that I do with clients. And so, I feel really privileged that I'm able to go into people's house and physically work with them. Before, when I did my wellness coaching, I was focusing on, it was more online and goal setting with individual clients. Whereas now I'm able to go into people's home, and I actually really enjoy that a lot more because you're physically there. You can see the barriers. And so I just put this together to share some tips that I find really helpful for those clients and past clients that I've worked with, which was around goal setting, and it was more online and doing it over the phone instead.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to know from your perspective, how do you think clutter actually does affect our lives? What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, oh, there's so many things, but this is just an example from last week. I decluttered with a mum her bedroom, and we'd been working for over 6 months together, and she kept saying, "Oh, I'm not emotionally ready to do the bedroom yet, not do the bedroom." Anyway, we did it 2 weeks ago, and I just saw her today, and she was like, "I can't believe how well I've slept since I did." The bedroom. So she's like, I wish I had have done it 6 months ago. So it is hard because there's so much emotional attachment within the bedroom, but that is probably the biggest benefit I see is when we do the bedroom and we work up to that, it's sleep that it impacts the most. Also, and then there's people who have desks in their bedrooms as well, and especially during the year that we've had workspaces. So I find that when we declutter that, it also helps with the that mental fatigue. Otherwise they're just thinking, oh, there's all that stuff I need to do tomorrow, whereas once we've decluttered it, set up a system around organization and what they're going to do each day, it sort of just takes it out of their brain and it's nice and clean. So definitely sleep, decision making, and finding time for things that they enjoy. Because other clients that I've worked with, they're like spending 10 minutes trying to find a stapler or an envelope for something that needs to go back to school, and they're looking in all these drawers. Whereas once we've sort of decluttered and organized and set up a system in a home, it just saves so much time.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you just what your opinions are on the KonMari method, which we sort of come to understand. And if anyone that doesn't know what it is, it really encourages tidying by category, not by location, beginning with clothes and moving to different things in the house, being books, papers, and miscellaneous items, and then finally sentimental items, but only keeping the things that speak to your heart and discarding items that no longer spark joy. I just
Mhm.
wanted to ask what your opinion is on that particular method that's sort of become widely sort of popular in the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. Like even I can just think of yesterday, it was like batteries, and I found some batteries. I was like, is there batteries anywhere else in the house? Yes, there's batteries here and there's batteries here. And it was like bringing them together and putting them with all the other things that related to that, which was like the digital technology type thing. So giving it a home and putting it together as a category. And I find that you might do one thing and then you'll say, now you sure there's not any more towels anywhere else in the house? Or craft is another big one. Is there any more craft? Oh, actually, there's paints here and there's some paints here, kids' paints. So it's bringing it all together to be able to organize it. And it really, I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, especially over the last 12 months with clients, is how it's made them more intentional about their shopping moving forward. So then they look at what they've got and say, oh, we've got all these paints. I do not need to buy any more paints, or it's stationery. We don't need to buy any more because we've got a lot of it here. So yeah, I do category, and I find we do the sentimental stuff last. A lot of them will say, well, we could just start here. And I'm like, really? Like, how do you feel emotionally? Yeah, maybe not. So then we will start with something a lot easier, like the kitchen, where there's not the emotional sentiments around it. Yeah, so it's a lot easier decision making. So definitely, yeah, would agree with that Marie Kondo method.
And why do you find that people generally just hoard and hold on to things? And I'll put my hand up. I'm a little bit of a hoarder sometimes too, so I'd love to understand a little bit more. For me, it's a very big, it's a time thing. Hence why I want to really get into the nitty gritty stuff of what you're going to share with us today. But why have you found people generally hoard and hold on to items? Is it because of that emotional attachment that they
It's the
have to items?
emotional. Yeah, it's definitely that emotional attachment. So when we are decluttering items, it's always looking at the emotion. What's the emotion you're feeling? And I think that's the great link of the Yin Yoga and also the organization. And that's why I haven't separated them as two different businesses, because they're actually really
The
interrelate,
same.
because you're able to, yeah, then sit with those emotions, and rather than just pushing them aside, like I would in the past, I would have pushed them aside and got busy and decluttered or organized something. But it's sitting with those emotions. I wonder why am I feeling this way? Or why am I holding on to that particular item? What is that emotion that I'm using to feed that emotion, because I enjoy that feeling? Whereas it may be somewhere else you could get that. Maybe it's connection. You're not getting enough connection in your life, and you've got those items that you feel really connected to.
Yeah. It's very interesting when you really do sort of start to look at it and the psychology behind it, and even just the cultural aspects of it. Because I mean, there's many cultures that really live in a minimalist sort of lifestyle. That I think the Danish are like that. A lot of Japanese, of course, you've got feng shui with China. It's just a very interesting thing to look and to study and to understand. Now, I'd love to just talk through now what your tips are to start to declutter. So the first thing that you mentioned in your article is planning. planning is ongoing. So can you maybe just talk to us a little bit about that?
Definitely, like you need to decide so when you're going to do it, when you've got the time and the energy. There's no point saying, yeah, I'm going to start today and you've got to pick, and this is at say 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you've got to pick the kids up at 3:30. It's like planning, okay, if I need to do a big job where it's going to take a lot of mental capacity around, definitely paperwork is something. There's not, you're not going to start that at the end of the day when you're drained. So it would be planning, I'm going to do that at the start of the day. Yeah, so looking at your day, your energy, how much energy you have and how much time you have, and and how much emotional attachment might be to those particular items. So something in your planning, like somewhere in your kitchen, might be a great start. And what I find with clients that I have on a regular basis is we do a little bit and then we slowly build up to the paperwork or the bedroom. So or clothes. So we, yeah, start with a smaller area that's still going to have an impact on their life, and just it builds momentum. You know, when you've done it, you just feel so good. Oh, and look at all this stuff that maybe we're donating or getting rid of somehow, whatever it is. It just makes them feel so much better and so much lighter. It's like almost like they almost look lighter when they're standing in front of you as well.
Very interesting. You've touched on energy because it can be quite exhausting, sort of as an additional activity to be able to declutter, and you are going through those emotions. Also, do you suggest with this point of planning that you should sort of set a time frame and say within the next 6 months we're going to do rooms A, B, and C to break it down a little bit? Yes or no? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's about setting an intention or the goal. What is the goal? Like it might be we want to tidy up the games and craft cupboards so that kids have access after school to those items, because at the moment they're not playing with it because it's, you know, stuffed in a cupboard that's got other things, linen and stuff in there as well. So it's setting up what the reason is why you want to do it, and then looking at what time you've got and how long you think it is. So generally when I work with a client, I'll only work for 3 hours at a time is the maximum I find, because there's so much emotional and so much decision making that they've got to make. You
Yeah.
know, we make 35,000 decisions a day, and you're taking a lot of those away just by decluttering. So it is really physically exhausting but mentally. And that's why I think people ask you to come and help them, because you're doing sort of a lot of that physical, because the emotional is for them, whereas it's not emotional for me. I'm not feeling that
Yes.
attachment
You're.
to it. So yeah,
Yeah.
helping get through that physical side of it so that they can use all their energy on the mental part of it.
That's
And that's
great.
why I think, you know, that's sort of a professional organizational area, like they're just such a valuable resource in our community, that, you know, and their profile has definitely been raised over the last few years, and definitely through Marie Kondo.
Yeah. The next point you make also is to write things down, and in particular, organization also eliminates decision making. So
Yeah.
making planning your week can make things a whole lot easier. So once again, that goes into that whole planning thing again. Could you maybe speak a little bit more about this point?
So with the planning, like I've got two things that I really enjoy. I have a command center. So like we said before, with my son being on the autism spectrum, he really needs like a visual schedule still during the morning to still remind him of what he needs to do. You know, so that's there, as well as a visual calendar, so he knows what he's doing each day, so he can see Monday through to Sunday. And I mean, it helps even my husband and I just as a quick glance to see what's going on. So we have that command center. You know, other people have things like their menu planning on there as well. So again, it eliminates decision making. You can see maybe what you're having throughout the week and help with the organization of food that you need, rather than going to the supermarket 6 days. 6 days, you're just going maybe once, twice to top up a few things. So definitely a command center I recommend as a visual sort of board in your house somewhere. And it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't even need like much space. Ours is like on a walkway through our kitchen. Yeah, it's just on a dead wall that no one used on the side of the fridge. And then the other thing is a shared calendar. So I started using a shared calendar, Life Sorted, maybe 4 years ago when it was first launched. And it's been fantastic. So my husband and I are on the same page, especially when he was working in Melbourne. He could see what was going on after school, where the kids were, what appointments, especially with my son. There were so many appointments at the start that we weren't used to, which, you know, we're lucky we can do some of them at school now as well. And we've got into that rhythm. So a shared calendar has been wonderful. And eventually, like my daughter will be in year 7 next year, she will then be able to use it as well. So it actually has integrated them both in there, but at the moment they don't use it, but they will once they move in. So you can actually share like little reminders. You can see whatever you want to see, and you can close off like your husband's sort of thing. You can share like for your information only that I'm going out tonight, or I've got yoga tonight. So it's not, and then you can actually include people in it. So yeah, I've really, really loved that. But there's a few other, you know, shared calendars out there, family friendly shared calendars. So
And
they'd be my two main planning tips for in the house.
the next one you mentioned is about routines and rituals. How can they, I guess, simplify our week then and just help us to share the load in general?
So routines are like, you know, there's sort of the rhythm in a routine. So I do, because with some people that I do work with, they find a routine too regimented, too hard. And then there's other people, like for example my son, if we don't have a routine even on the weekend, he doesn't cope. So he needs to know on Friday night what we're doing throughout the weekend. It doesn't have a time attached, but it has a rough idea of what's happening morning, lunch, and afternoon. So it depends on the person, but it is going to help eliminate decision making. Is probably the biggest thing that's going to help with you, help you and your family. So it might be more in the morning, a morning routine of what needs to be done. It doesn't necessarily have to go in order. It could be breakfast first and then getting dressed and making the beds or whatever, packing lunch boxes if it's for you, but also for your children. And I think that's one of the things that we forget also being a school teacher. Schools are just all about routine. You know, they have to eat their food at a set time. They have to do everything as a set time. And so therefore, like when we were at remote learning, it's like trying to integrate that back into our lives a little bit, because that's what children are used to. And again, they're used to that. They enjoy knowing what's next rather than having too many surprises and unpredictability. But there's some people who like a little bit of unpredictability. And I suppose the other thing is to look at is rhythms. I know for myself, when I started to work for myself, moving away from the school classroom setup, I found now that I'll focus on what my energy is like. So in the morning, I'm going to be more likely to write a blog, whereas in the afternoon, I'm going to be maybe setting up calendars and sending things that I need to do for my clients, or going shopping for organizational things that we need. So it's more of a rhythm around my energy and how I feel, rather than and necessarily a routine.
Mhm. And speaking about routines, like you say in the article, really consider help us save time and energy and increasing productivity overall, because time is always a factor in all aspects of everyone's life as
Yeah,
well.
no, yeah. Like it could even be around sort of like your exercise. What days maybe you're going to exercise within your family, so that your husband or partner knows what day you're going to, and trying to, you know, put that in. I know for me last year, I tried to do sort of online yoga, and it was like a portal, and it just doesn't suit me because I need that set time. I need to know that at 8 o'clock on Tuesday night, I'm going to the yoga class. So so I switched over and then did classes that were actually at a set time online, rather than, you know, whenever you want to do it, because I needed it was that motivation to go and do it at a set time. So I suppose it's just looking at what is it that you need for yourself. Is it more of a rhythm, or is it more of a routine? And then our rituals is like things that we do on special occasions that have meaning. So around birthdays and around Christmas time, Easter, you might have, I mean, I know lots of people in Australia have the ritual of going camping at Easter time. So yeah, looking at those as well, those things that you do around special occasions.
Another thing you mentioned, that everything has a home. So how can organizing systems for all of our belongings help eliminate stress and of course losing all important items?
Yeah, so I love this. I heard it years ago when I started doing the organizational things. So imagine a fork. You've got a fork. You're going, if you gave your child a fork and you asked them to go put it away, would they know where to put it away? So they know, yeah, it goes in the cutlery drawer. So we want to try and make everything in our home like that fork. So there's a home for it. So if we said, where's the scissors? We're not looking, that seems to be one thing everyone's looking for,
And
scissors or
sticky
a
tape. Sticky tape's another
sticky
thing. Every
tape.
time I go to wrap a present, I'm like, where's the
Yeah.
sticky tape every time?
And so it's creating a home for those things. And I like that you put them in like groups. Like I find in the bottom of people's drawers might be birthday candles and then some birthday decorations. And then there's paper plates somewhere else. And it's like, well, maybe they like each other. We could put them together in a home. So in a box, group them together. And that's why it's really important. I could go in and declutter people's houses, sort of like the home edit, and then they turn up and go, wow, but you actually need to work with the people, because it's them saying, what would they group together? Like batteries. I know that some people say they'd prefer in their kitchen, whereas other people are like, oh no, I'd group them with my digital technology things. So it's having that conversation and saying, so where would you go looking for this particular item if it had a home, to then set up that place within your house?
Yeah, I think it's very important to collectively have a shared understanding of where everything is, and
Yeah,
just the psychology of the household, as you were just saying, where people are likely to best think, okay,
yeah,
well, this item, where's it most likely to be? I
yeah,
think it's very important. And you do mention
yeah.
in the article also just to share the load, so delegating tasks. So if you are under the understanding that, for example, that everyone understands that certain systems are in place in the house, it does make it easier to delegate, would you say? Sort of keeping the
Definitely,
house
definitely. Yeah.
clean and
And
tidy?
jobs like chores sort of thing as well. Like just, my children choose a chore that they'd like to do that year. Each year in January, they select something. I've got a list and say, well, you could do this, this, and this. And they choose sort of based on their strengths, what thing they'd like to do. Because then they're more likely to actually follow through and do it, and only need like a reminder rather than, nagging for it. So that's definitely worked in our house, is sharing that, as well as just through like the shared calendar. That mental load is now not just on my shoulders, but my husband also has that there. Oh, there's a birthday on Saturday. I've taken a photo of the invitation. The address is there, the time, everything. So he's aware of that too. So it's not just me. And if anything happens, he can just jump on, have a look and take over if need be.
Yeah, it just saves so many sort of just frustrations and stress and anxiety in the household, and disagreements and raised voices and all of those things. If everyone just has got a clear understanding of just what the organization and the systems are for the house, much more sort of blissful sort of environment to live in. I'd love to know also, like, what other organizational tips do you have for families to implement that can help reduce, I guess, the mental load overall?
Probably one thing that I've found, it was a podcast I listened to that someone shared. This was an app, and especially if you want to do a little bit of decluttering yourself, and it was called Toss, and it you press it and it gives you an item and it says to go and declutter that, and it just breaks it down into really small categories. So for example, I think mine yesterday was my medication, so I'd go to the medications and just sort through the dates and out of dates, and then I put in what the number is that I decluttered, and then you don't get another one until the following day, and then you press it again and it gives you a new area in your house to declutter. Maybe it's tea towels the next day, and you just go and do the tea towels, and you can skip, say it says something about dog things or pets, you can skip that if you don't, it's not relevant to
Just an
you.
app, is
But
it?
yeah, it's great though. I just, it's a free app, and I heard someone else talking about it and thought, oh, I might just try it to be able to recommend it to other people to use. So that would be something, if you want to try it yourself, to get that app, and it'll give you some ideas to slowly move through your house.
And is there anything else that families can do, I guess, to help share just that mental load overall? Any other tips at all, do you think?
I'm just trying to think
Just
what else we
conversation.
haven't.
Seems like communication's a really big part of this as well, would you say?
Definitely, it is huge. And I mean, you could then go into sort of the digital side of it, as in, emails and setting up things like, you know, folders and things like that to keep it, because I suppose that's one of the things, working with a lot of clients that are NDIS plans, it's another thing that they have to deal with. So it's even setting up some systems around that in the home, but communicating, like, even setting up just a separate email address that deals with children's matters, could be something if you've already got your own work email and you don't want to be distracted every day when those things are coming in. So just having sort of maybe an email that's a family email address seems to have been working. We've done that for ourselves, but I know other families have been using it too and found that really useful.
Definitely. That's just the thing. Our emails all of a sudden can become very congested, with all kinds of spammy sort of items and all kinds of stuff that I spend half my time just unsubscribing from things that I don't necessarily need, or what have you in my inbox. So it's a very clever idea to have one particular email address specifically for very highly important items, like you said, be it anything to do with the family, and maybe
Yes.
even a separate one for bills as well. I think that's great
Mhm.
also, so it all doesn't end up too cluttered. And also, you mentioned in your article that we should make time to make sure that we sort of have that ability to rest and recharge. As we mentioned at the start of the chat, it can be quite physically exhausting as well. So to make sure that we have the energy to keep practicing decluttering behaviors, which is really
Definitely.
important. So I just wanted to see if you could maybe expand on that just a little bit
Yeah,
more,
definitely.
given the
So
nature of what you
definitely, and
do.
I think it's the emotional side of it too. Like, definitely, it's quite taxing emotionally. Digging deep and asking yourself why. Why am I keeping this particular item? What is that emotion that it's bringing up? So giving yourself that space to then go and actually work through it and have a think about it. Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's like Yin Yoga, which I do myself as well as teach, because, and that's what it was when my son was diagnosed. I started doing that to help me with all the decision making I needed to do and to stop the overthinking. And so I started practicing it and then went, oh, this is such a beautiful practice. I'm a PE teacher. I think I should move into this area. And I really enjoyed working with women, and it was just giving them another strategy to use in their lives that I don't know, I just feel with a lot going on, it's a really beautiful way of moving, but also tuning into your emotions, because it's movement, but meditation through movement. And, I get a lot of clients like, oh, I couldn't meditate, I couldn't sit still or be mindful for that long. Whereas by giving them the movement, it makes it a lot easier, and it sort of breaks down those barriers for them.
Yeah, there is definitely an energy flow when you are decluttering and moving things out of the house. Besides the physical, obviously you're picking something and moving it, but it's just there is that absolute feeling of flow as well,
Mm,
and it is a very cleansing feeling. Besides, as I said, the obvious physical part of it,
mm,
psychologically, you do feel lighter, and you do feel like there is this greater space in your life, which once again
yeah.
opens your mind to think and feel differently. Um, is there anything else you'd like to add to that at all? Because
No, I definitely agree with you on that. Like that, yeah, just by seeing people around me, the clients that I work with, and how it impacts their lives, because then some days you'll come back the next week and they've done so much more. Like, it just gives them that motivation to keep going and to focus more on themselves as well. Because a lot of them don't, they're so focused on their children and things going on. And then they may go, actually, I've now had that time to think. Now I'm not just, obviously the clutter is just weighing them down. So yeah, they're able to then maybe put something that they've always wanted, like maybe it's to do with gardening. Usually it seems to be like a little project that they've had that they're like wanted to do, and now they have that time and that space and energy to go and do it.
and what it isn't so much an ant like a hoarding behavior that's sort of emotional. Maybe if it's just time that their lives are just so full and so busy. Any tips with regards to trying to just create that space in the calendar? Is it just, as they say, the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, to be able to, as we said before, have a long-term plan and sort of chunk it down a little bit into smaller things? I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's just one small bit. So setting whatever that goal is, and then breaking it down and setting a time, a day. I love, like, definitely. I think it's really motivating to take a before photo and then an after photo. And I'm really terrible at remembering to take a before photo for clients. I might then take it when it's all out on the floor, which is quite overwhelming for them. But then when it's back in, they're just like so motivated by how it looks and how it feels. And just by setting up there's usually like a system around it. It's not just making, and it's decluttering. So it's not just organizing stuff, but it's actually removing things that they don't need in their lives anymore. It's surprising how many people would have 4 hole punches, and there's maybe 2 that they actually don't like, and they've bought a new one, but they just haven't had that time to remove those other 2 out of their life. And there might be one that's sentimental that they've kept. So it's having the time to do that. And just making it small. Set one small thing. And I suggest the kitchen's a good one because it's not emotional.
And of course, there's really great things, for example, like Facebook Marketplace for people to sell things
Yeah,
also, which is just genius.
yeah,
And yeah, so
definitely. And even like, I think one of the other things is very intentional about what I do with the things and I don't ever leave the things at the people's house. I take it with me. Because it possibly would still be there next week, and it hasn't really then created that space for them. So, we have a local dogs home, and cats. So I drop off all linen. They take that, which is fantastic. Office Works has so many recycling bins there. So definitely all digital and cords and things like that, I'll take there for them. And I sort of have a little route around Geelong here that I'll drop stuff at those different places on my way to another client's place. And then a couple of the op shops that I'll take certain things depending on what it is. To those op shops. And we also have Geelong Mums, which is also in Melbourne. And if there's other items that I can drop there as well. So yeah, tapping into some of our local resources, and schools. A couple of schools I've taken resources that families don't need anymore to the school, so other people can use it rather than it just going in the landfill.
yeah, it's not only the beneficial for your own home and environment and your mental well-being and everything else. It's the ability to be able to give back and sort of contribute and help others in need as well, which is
Yeah.
essentially important.
Mm.
And my last question really is just about maintaining. I mean, maintenance, I guess, is the key to keeping the home clutter and stress free. Is there anything else that once we've, for example, gone through and we've completed the project and we're it's all hunky dory and it's looking awesome? Like, what are your tips for, I guess, for maintaining sort
It's
of
yeah,
clutter
it
free
is.
environment?
At my house is pretty clean, but I do have to maintain because it's not going to look that way with 2 kids. Even though they will follow the systems, it's still going to need, updating every. I try to do it every school holidays, just devote a day or 2, and then occasionally. Well, that has been fantastic. So that's kept me on track of just doing a little bit at a time. But setting a day would be fantastic if you've got a day where you just have 1 hour, 10 minutes, and you just do one thing. Would be a great way to maintain it.
Yes. Well, this has been a really insightful chat. I've learnt a lot and I'm about to embark onto decluttering my living environment. We've had a very busy start to the year and we've just launched a big e-commerce site sort of recently. So that's taken and a big chunk of the last few months of my time, which means I haven't really had much of an ability. And I do feel my living environment needs a good clean out. So and I'm sure a lot of people also, following 2020 had, although that we were home a lot more, doesn't necessarily mean that we had more time with parents having to be homeschooling and all kinds of sort of other stuff that sort of happened in the last 12 months. So it's maybe now an opportunity as we are sort of fingers crossed starting to ease out a little bit more into I guess life post COVID, hopefully, as the vaccine starts to roll out and everything else, that we have the opportunity to think a little bit clearer with clearer minds. Do you think? I don't know. What are your
Oh,
thoughts?
definitely. Yes, yeah, for sure. Yeah, as life sort of gets back to a new normal,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
So for anyone watching,
Where would be the first area that you need to declutter?
for me
In your home?
personally,
Yeah.
the bedroom and the clothing, and I think this is another thing too, is because I sort of hold on to clothes that I think I'll be able to fit back into that. There's, and I do like certain types of clothes, in the sense that I love Ted Baker as an example, and they're not necessarily all too cheap, so I don't want to necessarily just throw them out. But my whole thing is I'm going to fit back into that. So I'm going to keep that in my cupboard, but it's just, it doesn't always happen. So I need to be able to work through those emotions, I think, to sort of and appreciate my shape, that it's sort of, it's there's more of me to love these days. So so yeah, I've been starting to try other areas in the kitchen, and even the bathroom as an example. It's wonderful. So once you do start that process of decluttering, you do feel so much better. It's like a cold shower. It's just
Yes.
leaving the big jobs is what sort of I end up sort of getting a lot of built up anxiety, because every time I open up the cupboard, I'm like, oh, I've got to do that, and I just haven't
Yeah.
had the chance. But yeah, so I've learnt a lot, and I hope that everyone watching and listening has as well. So in saying that, I mean, how would you summarize your key messages for anyone watching and listening then?
Well, I would definitely look at just looking at a small area in your home and that you want to focus on, and that would give a really great value to your family, whether it's toys, games, or kitchen around to help with meal planning, or your pantry, or maybe it's bedrooms so that you can sleep better. So yeah, just decide what's that one area that's going to give you a huge impact, and look at why it is that you want, that. So the intention behind it would be my,
Yes.
yeah, main tip. And look at maybe also around organization. So when you're going to look at your calendar and how you're going to set that up so that everyone in the family is on the same page.
Yeah, there's definitely some really, really key points that you've highlighted in the chat today. And of course, they're listed in your article. And we'll have all of those links in the show notes for everyone to go back and to take what part, if not all of it, to adapt to their life. So we're so grateful for your wisdom and all the information that you've shared with us today. Take care. And
That's
we'll
great.
look forward to the chat, hopefully, again in the not too distant future. But in the meantime, stay safe. Much love.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
All right, bye.